started. So welcome everyone. My name is Molly. I'm on the admissions team here at Quantic. Very excited to see everyone here today. We do these alumni Q&A sessions every couple of months as an opportunity for you to hear directly from our alumni about their experiences. We're different from both traditional and other online master's programs, so this is a great chance for everyone to hear about the program firsthand from those who have been through it. So I've got Brandy and Jermaine from the admissions team helping in the chat box today. And I just want to run through some session reminders before we begin with the panel. We're a large crowd today, so please keep yourselves on mute so we can hear our alumni. Our graduates here today are from the Executive MBA program, and if you have applied for or are interested in our MSBA or MSSE degrees, you're very welcome. The program delivery and the network and the large-scale networking events are the same, though of course the content and the projects will differ, but the emphasis today is hearing from our alumni about their experience in the program and beyond. And so we are recording this session. If you have to leave early, we can send it on to you later. And I'll just go briefly through the questions that we'll be asking our alumni. So thank you to everyone who submitted questions when you RSVP to this event. We've condensed them into these frequently asked questions. But please feel free to add any follow-up questions in the chat. We can ask them live at the end if we have some time. And we can also answer your program-related questions in the chat box. But if you have anything specific to your personal situation or anything that requires a lot more detail, we recommend that you reach out directly to the admissions team. We've got an email address. We have some advisors who are ready to help. Brandy's putting our contact details in the chat right now, but would love to get started. So we've got an amazing panel today. We're going to let everyone introduce themselves individually, and then we'll go into those questions. We've got an alumni Q&A veteran here today, some conference attendees. We're really excited to catch up with everyone. And so we're going to kick it off with our world traveler, Sat. So if you can just let us know where in the world you're coming from, when you graduated, maybe a little bit about your professional background and how you ended up at Quantic.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that, Molly. Hi, everyone. So I started on the Quantic program probably about 5 years ago. So just at the beginning of COVID, actually. And funny enough, that was one of the reasons why Quantic was a decision that was quite easy to make. The whole world was quite remote then, and there wasn't an option to do anything in person. So that made my life a little bit easier decision-wise. I run a company called Emergent Consulting. We're based in London and in Dubai. It's primarily focused on cybersecurity consulting and on blockchain and cryptocurrency advisory. So company's been running since the beginning of COVID, as I said. I started basically the first month that we had lockdown in London. So not an easy time to be starting a company, but nobody ever says it's going to be easy. Before that, I worked in program delivery and professional services for about 25 years for really large enterprise companies like EMC with about 15,000 employees at the time, down to startups with 100, 200 employees. I prefer being in the startup space now. And that's one of the reasons why I took the decision to actually join Quantic back in 2020, 2021. I'm also a keen traveler, as it says here. I've been fortunate enough to go to quite a few countries around the globe. Not as many as some people I've met at Quantic. I've met people who've done 100 plus, which is incredible. I'm up to about 60 odd at the moment. I've started a competition with my kids, and they're on to 50 or 60 already. They're cheating because they're going every week now, traveling somewhere, which I don't have the opportunity to do. Both of my kids have sort of followed in my footsteps. One's just started in a small crypto business as a sort of BD, and my other son is an architect at a payments company. I feel sorry for them because they did physics, but I think they're quite excited about having met a lot of people from Quantic, having been meeting a lot of my friends that I've worked with, and I've been very fortunate. I know a lot of really nice people, so I think they just decided, look, that's the space we want to be in. It's a nice, happy space.
I love that. Clearly, you've been an inspiration to them. And being a world traveler, you know that no matter where you go in the world, you'll probably run into a Quantic student or alumni. That's kind of something that's really special about our student and alumni base.
Yeah. By the way, sorry, Molly, I know you're going to cut to others, but just a quick one around that. It's something I found really interesting is that there are a lot of Slack messages when people are traveling, and I see them saying, "Look, I'm going to be in so and so in Nebraska, maybe to go and see Alyssa. You know, I'm going to be local. Anybody around? I'd love to meet up." And I see that a lot, and that's really come in useful as well when I've traveled.
Oh yeah, I love that. You can get travel advice, you can meet up for coffee or a late night dancing session after the Lisbon conference, as I'm sure you guys will get into a little bit later, but you're right. I'd love to introduce Alyssa as our next panelist. Alyssa had just come from the Lisbon conference a couple weeks ago, and would love to hear a little bit more about your professional background, when you graduated, and how you ended up at Quantic.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. So I'm an HR lady by practice and by experience, but I recently started my own company. But before I go into that a little bit, I I'll tell a little bit about how I found Quantic and how I started this journey. In 2023, I was still working in corporate and I was given the opportunity to move into a new space to run finance transformation for a global manufacturing company. And while I'd been working with finance teams for a long time and technology teams and could speak the language and understand the jargon, I didn't really feel confident about my financial and business acumen. And that's when I started looking for programs. So Quantic really stood out to me at that time. One, because of the flexibility. I was a busy parent, working, putting in a lot of hours, traveling around the globe to meet up with my colleagues. And also because it had that global component. I really wanted to connect with people around the world and have that challenge my thinking and look at things from outside of silos and from a broader perspective. So I joined in 2023. I just graduated in March of 2025. So I'm fresh off the graduation and the big Capstone project. And it's really invigorated my business. So as I went out on my own and left the corporate world into starting my own company where I design and execute innovative talent strategies, um, it gave me a lot of things to put in my pocket and in my tool belt to help market my business, to understand how to do my own accounting, my own taxes, and just really be more prepared in that regard. So, got to dive in that as well. I also got really excited about my Capstone project, which is a technology tool. And I've been pursuing making that another business, which is opening an entire new door for me, right? I'm not a software engineer, but I'm really fascinated about the opportunities that these tools can provide and the vast network of people that I'm now connected to who could help me make that new business idea a reality.
Wow, that is super interesting that your capstone has the possibility of being launched. That is a common motivation that we hear from people who are going into the program, like maybe I want to start a business, and then actually going through the capstone and having all of this framework, they have that confidence to launch in. And that's something that you had mentioned earlier as well. Going through a formalized program, it does give you the confidence, even though you probably had all the experience, all the goods, but this really does put the icing on the cake for and to package your future basically.
Yeah, and I like that the program was different, right? I like the idea of shaking things up, and I was getting target marketed by the big names. I won't say them on here because I don't want to undercut them, but the programs were overpriced for what it should be. And I love the idea of accessibility to education and affordability because we all are better together and can grow together. So Quantic really stood out to me with a high quality program that was affordable and accessible in a way that can help us all build our knowledge and make the world a better place.
I love that. Couldn't say that better myself, Alyssa. It is a mission-driven business school, and our students do share those common traits of being globally minded and trying to make a difference. And I'm so glad to have you here today. And I'd love to go ahead and introduce Joy. And then Joy, you've got a really interesting background as well. And so we'd love to hear a bit about your professional experience, also how you found Quantic and when you graduated. And so I'll pass it over to you, Joy.
Yes, thank you so much, Molly. And I think you'll find that my journey has probably been very similar to Alyssa's. I'll start first with the career part and then how I ended up at Quantic. So I would say the majority of my career was at Lilly, a pharmaceutical company headquartered in the United States. And for many years, I did want to pursue my MBA, but things like children and moving around from different, roles within Lilly made that a bit difficult. So it's always been something on my professional development plan. And I moved over to the vendor space and then back to Roche. I actually started my MBA at another organization and kind of stepped away from that as I took another career pivot. But it was still something that was very much that I wanted to complete. And so the role I'm in today as Chief Commercial Officer at Medvantix, which is a group of pharmacies that serves pharmaceutical manufacturers, the CEO I had said, I'd like you to go deeper, more into accounting and finance as you want to see your career progress over time. And so for me, it was either going to be getting a certification in that area or going back to get my EMBA. So we started investigating different programs. And what do you know? Quantic showed up in my LinkedIn as something to look at and evaluate. I evaluated a lot of programs. And for me, it was really around the flexibility. I think that it offered and kind of having that global influence that was interesting to me. And then looking at some of the ratings online and then cost played a role as well. I work more at a startup organization. So unlike Lilly or Roche that would fund part of that for me, I was going to be funding this opportunity. And there was also scholarship opportunities. So that was kind of what drew me into the program. And I will say I like the way the learning is applied throughout the process. So it was a great way for me to learn after coming back to school. After like 20 years, you're learning how to study again. And it's a little bit different than when we went to undergrad 20 plus years ago. It took a while to jump back in. I think accounting was a little bit of a wake-up call. But after I got through that first session, it was like you got in the groove in terms of, how you were going to learn and set aside time for the program. And so now sometimes I'm like, I kind of miss studying now that I'm done. So I started in the beginning of 2024 and then graduated this year in April. And I will say one thing with the capstone as well, I did appreciate the flexibility of here's a couple options, or you can go at it on your own. And so I chose something that was going to apply to my day to day. And then actually, we just launched a new service at our organization. So it was very much seeing, applying, and now doing part of that capstone experience, which has been really beneficial to me. And I will say now I have much more fruitful conversations with our finance team than I had before. There was a section on M&A. We just completed our first acquisition. So I'm actually seeing what I learned in Quantic coming to life probably each and every day. So for me, it was actually the right time in my career to have this experience. So I'm grateful I did it.
I love that differentiation with the capstone, which is also super relevant to the MSBA and the MSSE degree capstone projects, that they are super relevant and they can be related to any business case, strategy report. You're creating actual software artifacts in the MSSE degree that you can deploy with your employer or on your own in your own business. So I'm glad that you brought that up. And another thing, Joy, is that there's never really the perfect time to go back to school when we have full busy lives, careers, families, but finding the program that meets you where you're at. I think that's like the biggest thing. And we've said it, Alyssa said it, the accessibility, Joy, the flexibility. I think that's what makes this program really stand apart and actually leads perfectly into my first question. So Joy, I'll just throw it right back to you. And being a full-time working person, how did you fit study around your busy schedule?
I think for me, it was really time blocking. So a lot of the work I did was on Saturday mornings early, a bit on Sunday, and then a couple evenings a week because I have quite a bit of travel in my job as well. So I felt like it was very manageable that way. I know you can also with the app, which is convenient, flexible, you can use the app on your phone and get a little bit here, a little bit there as well. But for me, it was just planning ahead and time blocking on my calendar. So I felt like it was very manageable. There's a lot of time we spend in our day to day on things like Instagram, Facebook, Netflix that we just waste. And instead you can replace it with Quantic.
Mhm. Absolutely. I'm sure that's the kind of the part that you're missing now, where to put your free time after you've
I'm
graduated.
now reading books again for enjoyment, which is kind of nice.
Oh, that's nice. Sat, how about you? You going through the program a few years ago, how did you fit the study around your busy schedule?
Yeah, so for me, I think it was a non-negotiable at the beginning. I was just starting my business, and the reason why I started the Quantic program was to teach me new skills, so skills that I didn't have, having to go into a business as a sole owner, but also remind me of some of the things I did at university and a little bit older than Joy. I did mine 40 years ago, undergrad. So there's a lot's changed in the world, and I'd been in the corporate space for 25 years, but in quite a pigeonhole space. So I needed to make sure that I was setting time aside to learn. And actually, at the beginning, it was more important that I did the Quantic program than I did actually work on the business for a little while. So there were some key modules I had to cover to enable me within my business space. So that was a non-negotiable. But when I did get a project where I was doing more contribution towards the work, I found that actually it was quite simple to log into the app, and actually quite enjoyable as well to go through stuff and learn the module. It's a nice way to learn. There's nothing too burdensome about it. So it means that I'm not only enjoying it, but actually able to sort of take time aside to go and do the work. So that was quite good.
So it sounds like having started your own business, you kind of had more flexibility and you could prioritize which needed more attention, whether it was the modules or the projects or your business needs. That flexibility is apparent.
Yeah, well, the challenge is sometimes you don't get a choice, right? So when you're starting your own business, you've got to spin quite a few plates, right? And I always look to people that have more experience than I do, or I have to go and learn the skills. So in the first year of my business, I was doing both. I was going out and leaning on the network actually at Quantic as well, but also making sure that I did the modules and put that into practice straight away as well.
Yeah, great point. The community is really great to draw from or get inspiration from. Alyssa, curious about your experience. How were you able to fit study? Did you do time blocking? Did you kind of just follow the schedule? What was your aspect?
Yeah, so time blocking I think is important. Prioritizing that time, as both Joy and Seth talked about. But the other thing that I really did was put into practice some of David Allen's getting things done practices, which is putting the right work in the right time period, right? So if I had a little video that was an extra thing as part of the program to watch, and I had 5 minutes waiting in line somewhere, I'd watch the video then, right? And I reserved the more intense periods for different days or different time blocks so that I didn't feel that pressure and I was in the right mindset to do it at that time. The other thing that really helped me was in weeks where I had more availability or more time for whatever reason, kid schedule, work schedule, I worked ahead on my extra specializations, so that way I knew when it came to the end of the program, I wouldn't be stressed about that, and I could refocus on all those other things at the end and the big projects versus having to also check out my specializations at the same time.
Brilliant. That's a great tip. You can do the specializations at any time during the program, though there is dedicated time periods, but getting them out of the way leaves a lot more time for the heavy capstone, the engagement towards the end of the program. Yeah, that's a great point. And great. So Alyssa, you actually already talked a little bit about our second question. If you can elaborate a little bit about how the Quantic program has helped you professionally.
Yeah, it happened at a really interesting time. Like I said, I was working for a corporation at the time that I did it, or that I got started. And almost immediately, you dive into the accounting piece, and I was having these aha moments and reaching out to my colleagues and saying, aha, now I know what you were talking about there. And even poking holes in things. And that kind of spirit of curiosity opened my eyes a lot about how my business was working. And then as I transitioned out on my own, I mean, gosh, just a whole new world, kind of like Scott was talking about. I was taking the classes to learn how to do my own books, right? To really understand and do that work. And while I could have outsourced my accounting, I chose to do it, even though honestly it was painful. And I learned I really didn't like it. But it taught me so much more about how my business runs and how cash moves through it, and how to really maximize it. So um, it helped me there, and just building that confidence and that base knowledge of how businesses are run, so that I can really catapult the rest of my programs and tie in that acumen, while I'm talking about how we move into the future of work and elevate talent within my clients.
Mhm. And going through a type of program like this, it does help to kind of spark that match. And you said those aha moments and the curiosity. Definitely you can outsource things, but being able to at least have the knowledge to do it yourself and to check things, especially for your own business, I think is an important factor. And Joy, you've mentioned a little bit about this as well, but would love to hear a little bit more elaboration on how the Quantic program has helped you professionally.
I would say for me, accounting, finance, and then some of the strategy coursework has just been really beneficial in the day-to-day of, my work. I will say I truly enjoyed micro and macroeconomics, especially, last year going through the election and where we are politically right now, understanding what's happening tariffs and all those sorts of things was just fascinating for me, just to have a better global perspective. So for me, it was, as Alyssa just mentioned, curiosity. For me, that was, I think, just very enjoyable coursework. And I was like, wow, rewind 20 years ago, I might have pursued a completely different career than, I did, today. But I just really enjoyed some of the coursework. But for me, where we are right now in the scaling of our organization, I feel like the strategy piece has been really beneficial, and especially the finance pieces. And that's exactly what my CEO wanted me to get out of it. And as I think of where my career will go in the next 5 years, I think it's been very foundational for me.
Thank you, Joy. That's another motivation that we hear from students who are about to embark on the program, that it's been recommended to them by higher leadership, or maybe sometimes even mandated, and so they want to kind of prepare you with the skills and framework and the credentials that are sometimes necessary to move up in an organization. And I like that you also mentioned that beyond the professional development, there's that personal development as well. The curiosity, learning about the world. I think that's an important factor as well. So thank you, Joy.
And I think one thing to add before you go to SAT is the fact that one benefit is that you can take additional classes. It's like you're a member or alumni for life. And so, when I have more time, I can go in and take other things that are just of interest to me when I have time, knowing I'm not like working towards a grade, but it's just free learning, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, all of the lessons are available to our graduates forever, and that includes anything new that's added. Saad, curious if you've taken any of the new courses. I think the blockchain course was probably launched after your graduation, but were you able to go back and continue learning on the platform?
Funnily enough, I did the blockchain course a week before I started in my crypto journey with Fireblock. So I took the course just beforehand, and it was very welcome as an intro into a side of crypto and blockchain I wasn't really sort of, I wouldn't say comfortable with, but it was new to me. So that was really useful. And then while I was at Fireblocks, actually, there was another key module that I thought came in really helpful. There was the entrepreneurship module. And obviously, with my own business, I'm using and leveraging some of that module and some of the work that we did there anyway. But actually, what I found was, as I grew within the organization and started working with other business units at Fireblocks, the background that that module gave me in building business cases, working around how to recognize markets, etc., really helped me, because it actually gave me a step up in my career while I was at Fireblocks as well. So that was interesting, because I wouldn't have had those conversations without that. And then the third one I'm taking and using now, so 2 years after I graduated, having access to the platform, I'm revisiting the marketing module, amongst others. But we're going through a sort of brand change and a redevelopment of our business as a whole. And I'm leveraging that now. So I've just come out of an event where some of the feedback wasn't great about the branding, etc., that we're doing. I didn't use the module at the time because I'd inherited some of the branding. But I'm using that now actually to redo what we're doing. So that's interesting.
Ooh, that must be an exciting project too, to be able to just redo a brand.
It is. And you know what, it's also nervous, right? There's a nervousness about, when I started the program, one of the things I was really careful on, wanted to make sure I got the most out of the Quantic program, was I'm always aware that there's a bunch of things that I don't know. It's easy to be in your comfort zone about things you do know and focus on those. Some things are easy. One example I'll give you is I've lived most of my corporate career, and before that, I used to work in a shop many years ago, right? And everything's on a gut feel. When something's a business opportunity, how to sell to people. A lot of it is gut feel. I don't think that's good enough in the landscape that we're in now. So I have to be able to go and quantify that opportunity. I have to go and provide evidence around things. And that's what Quantic gives me, which is the technical background to be able to go and do. And sometimes it's just a double check on the gut feel, right? So I have a gut feel. I'll then go use the Quantic program to go and rationalize that in the background. So I think that's really important for me, because when I started the business, I didn't want to misstep. I didn't want to make any mistakes at the beginning, because they will set you back months. So it's better to go get ahead of the curve. That's why, to me, doing the modules early was non-negotiable. I made time for them because it was more important to get it right than to go and do something and find that actually it was in the course anyway.
You know, sometimes it is helpful to put like a name or vocabulary word on that gut feeling and just to kind of know that you're going in the right direction. And it sounds like that you were able to not only use these courses for your own business, but it helped you directly in your role at Fireblocks as well.
That's great, Jess.
Great. And so, Sat, I know that you've been an active member of our community. I would love to hear a little bit more about how you have benefited from the Quantic network.
Yeah, so obviously it's for me going into this in the during COVID. I wasn't really thinking the network when I took the course on it. For me, it was all about my business, about what it meant for me starting something new. You know, I'd always said I wanted to do it. Didn't have the guts when I was working for BlackBerry back in the day, and then I was forced into it at the beginning of COVID. So that was great. The network at that time wasn't something we were considering, right? You know, we're all working remotely, but it's been a massive benefit. It's also been a really huge surprise as well. I had no idea how many people I would meet through the network, not just the events, the conferences, my case study that I worked on, the Capstone project. You know, that was a global team that I worked with, right? So where it's benefited me specifically are I've actually leveraged a couple of the people that have got skill sets that are outside of my own skill set or the team people that I normally use. Legal advice. So I've taken legal advice and contracting advice from people that I know who've done it. I wouldn't say that you always have to do favors for people, but it's been nice that they've just been able to get on the phone with me and say, look, Sat, this is what I think you should be able to do. So that's been fantastic. That's really, it's like a crutch when you need it most, right? And then the other one is about go-to-market advice. So quite a few of the team are in the Middle East. We're exploring new markets there as well. So I've actually leveraged some of the guys that were on the course to give me some feedback on some of the target accounts that we've been after as well. Even there have been a couple of projects that I wanted to work on for companies, and I noticed that there are Quantic alumni there, and I've always pinged them as well first. Before I reach out to anyone else, I want to reach out to the Quantic people first.
We're all over the place. I think like from this, the one word that comes to mind talking about Quantic students and alumni is they're so generous. You know, willing to lend their time and expertise, and I'm sure that you're the same way. You know, people talk about you in the community. You're a great leader, and so that's. Can you tell us a little bit more about your capstone? So you said that you've worked with a global team. Can you tell us a little bit more about that experience?
Yeah, so I know one of your questions was about advice that you'd give to people as well about the program. So I made a huge mistake at the beginning for the Capstone project. I know Joy was a lot more professional about hers, and she managed to do it within her environment. But I decided to try and do my project myself first, but because it was about a business that I wanted to start as another business I was looking at. So it's very personal to me, and I thought it wouldn't resonate amongst the rest of the team. So I thought I'd try that. And that was at the same time I'd always also started working for that project at Fireblocks as well. Huge mistake. So what I did was I revisited the project, the Capstone project, and actually decided to join a group in a later cohort, and they were fantastic. So I ended up with somebody from Australia, a couple from Nigeria, and somebody from the Middle East as well. So a very global group, very difficult to manage across time zones, as you can imagine. But you know, I was running my own business, so I was a little bit more flexible, and plus I don't sleep, so that always helps. But yeah, they're a fantastic group, and I learned even more from them because they took the Quantic program and they had a different view on some of the modules that we've done. So although we've all passed the exam and been through the modules, they took different things from the modules. And so coming into a group exercise like the Capstone project meant that actually we had people who had a very different perspective of how to handle the business plan that we're putting forward. So that for me was also a massive learning exercise as well.
Absolutely. You're getting people from varying backgrounds of education, industry, culture. Everyone handles business situations in different ways. And just for the audience, I'll note that for all of the group projects, you can work individually. You're not required to work in a group. So, you know, if you're choosing to work in a group, everyone else is also choosing to be there. So we find that that lends to greater learning outcomes for adult learners, especially. So I'm glad that you had that group experience and you were able to learn, you know, not just from doing the business plan with them, but from how they approached the business plan, success, challenges. That's a great clarification. Thank you, Sad. And so I think we can go to Alyssa, if you would like to talk about how you have benefited from the Quantic network, just in your few months of being an alumni, but also as a student.
Yeah, so I have been now to 3 different conferences, and I can tell you they're absolutely incredible. The conversations that I have there are so high value, and they range from everything, from personal to business. But because we're there, talking about our careers and talking about business, it really does lean a lot into that content and just getting people's perspective in real time, where you're not waiting for a Slack or a Zoom meeting to be scheduled, is just really life changing. I've been really surprised, honestly, with how open and welcome everyone is. You make friends for life through the program when you're really involved and really giving yourself and being there authentically, and with good intentions. I've also stayed connected with a few different folks who have businesses that are kind of aligned with mine. So, we've kind of partnered on what could joint workshops look like, and things like that. The other thing that I'll call out is I've had the opportunity to present and help facilitate at a couple of conferences as well. So that's great for my business, right? I can get my frameworks out in front of people and not only test that content and get real authentic feedback from people that I can trust, but it also helps me, get more confident and better at my own craft and the work that I'm doing. So I've gained, it's priceless, I guess I would say, the benefit that I've gotten from that.
That's amazing. Yeah, very supportive of each other's careers and being able to contribute to each other's businesses. I think that's a really another characteristic of Quantic students. They do want to help each other, promote each other, give advice. And I'm glad, yeah, I've heard really great feedback from your entrepreneurship workshop. I think that was at the Lisbon conference. So Sat enjoyed it as well, I'm sure. Joy, would love to pass it over to you about how you have benefited from the Quantic network.
I would say probably similar to Sat. I did several of my projects as group projects, and I think we were successful in terms of our grades because we worked as a group. Everybody had a different perspective, and we kind of, especially with accounting and I believe it was the finance project, we kind of all did it on our own and then came together and then found like, oh, I made an error here, you made an error there. How do we work through this and see how we get to the right solution? And then even as we wrote summaries, everybody had a different perspective. And so for me, working as a group was very valuable. I did do the capstone on my own. Part of it was what I was working on and the amount of travel I had. And I found what worked for me. And as I was networking with another individual, they suggested going off to a hotel for multiple weekends. I got stuck in a snowstorm for business travel for like 3 days, and it ended up being the best thing for me, just being on lockdown. And I think I wrote like 28 pages over those 3 days. So it was like a blessing in disguise, my silver lining, where most people would have been crying. I was like, this is the best thing ever. Residence Inn in Louisville, Kentucky by the airport, eating microwave meals. But I got most of that thing done over the course of a few days, but used a global network of other companies to provide input into that capstone. And then have stayed in contact with some of the individuals in my groups. I did not get the opportunity to go to one of the meetups, but maybe in the future, if there's one in Chicago or nearby, I'll get to attend because they sound pretty fantastic.
I mean, a snowstorm is definitely one way to time block and get your project done.
It was a time block, that's for sure. Lots of time with me and my laptop, but it was just what I needed at the right time.
Oh, wonderful. We actually did hold one of our North American conferences in Chicago last year. I know that there's one happening in Vancouver in October, but there's always like smaller meetups like the one that Sat had attended in London, in these big cities around the world. And obviously, if you want to host one, like our students and alumni are often hosting these like maybe little pub quiz gatherings or picnics or fundraisers. That's a common thing that we on the network map on the dashboard. There's often events that just pop up on a monthly basis. Joy, I'd love to go to you with my next question, because you did mention that you started a different MBA program before you continued with Quantic. So how would you compare Quantic to other well-known institutions?
So I feel like this program, I mean, many of you probably use like Duolingo, the app for learning other languages. I felt like the learning was more matched to learning of today, more flexible. I also felt like the advisors really want everyone to succeed. I mean, you have to actually study, you have to do the work, you have to take the test, you have to pass the test, but it is achievable. if you take the time to do it. But for example, one of the individuals that was one of our group projects had a life event, had a family member that had to be taken care of, and there was the ability to step away and come back. And we want to see our students graduate. Obviously, if students succeed and graduate, Quantic is more successful, but there is the support there. I know my advisor was very helpful to me, like even going through the capstone. Am I on the right track? What else do I need to see to get a great grade? The feedback was incredibly helpful, was very direct, but it's what I needed to get on, the right track for my project. But I didn't necessarily see that at the other program I started. I felt like it was circa 1998, just redone in a virtual environment. And so I was like, what am I doing? I don't know if I can continue down this path. And I didn't think I was going to grow and be able to apply things. So I feel like this is very application based with, like some of the case studies that you're doing. It felt very real world versus almost like just a virtual classroom, if you will. So I think that was the difference for me is even, I think you mentioned this, Alyssa, if you can't join a Zoom call because it's, when you actually have a meeting with a customer, you know what, it's recorded for you. So at night while I am like cooking dinner for the family, I can have it playing on my laptop and listen to the lecture at the same time and still, get the information that I need. So I appreciated just the flexibility that it offers and the grace that frankly Quantic gives, because many of us on this call, not everybody, we also are kind of in the sandwich generations. We're managing children and also taking care of aging parents or relatives. And so you want us to be successful, which I appreciate.
I'm glad you brought that point up, Joy, because a lot of people who are on this call are trying to imagine what an online master's program looks like, and there's often people who they may have. Sorry. A lot of other universities, they literally try to take their brick and mortar and stick it on the internet, and that doesn't work. And it is a practical based learning, but there is institutional support. There are academic advisors. There's a librarian. There's the academic team. There are actual people who are going to help you get through this. And if a big life event happens, it's gonna be okay. You're not gonna be punished for that. We know that everyone has full lives outside of studying, and I do think that that is a really a nice differentiating factor that Quantic provides. Extensions. You can even move your exam dates up if you are going on vacation or something. You want to get it
I
out
had
of
that happen. I was even over the holiday, I was like, I have this week off. Can I take my test early? Because I didn't want to lose all the learning and the studying put in. So I appreciated that. And then the responsiveness on Slack in terms of getting answers questions answered for us too.
Yeah, Quantic students are such overachievers that they want to get their exams done before holiday time. And the Slack spaces are also, the academic team is present there. They answer, they do Q&As before exams. So yeah, that whole social learning part is hard to imagine until you're actually in it and taking advantage of it. So thank you, Joy. And Alyssa, you also mentioned that you had you were reached out by other MBA programs. Would you tell us a little bit about how you would compare Quantic to other well-known institutions?
Yeah, and I didn't sign up for any of those, so it would be more from my perspective. But I think what's really unique about Quantic and what I liked about it was it has this entrepreneurial spirit and edge to it with everyone who's in it, whether they're truly an entrepreneur or whether they're just pursuing something new in their career. And the way that you go through the programs, they collect regular feedback, so you can give feedback on a slide and say, hey, like, I don't know how about this question, or I have questions about it. And they have AI tools built in, so if you're confused about something or need to go back over it, you can hit a little button and it'll re-explain the concept on the page. So the other thing that's really cool is it's gamified, so it keeps your attention going. It's not my first master's program that I completed in 2008, where it's just like big, thick books and you read the books and then you write a paper about the book, right? It's very much, as Joy said, real world applicability with real world examples. And where I'm at in my career, in my life, that's what I need, right? I need to know how to go out and do the thing in real life. I don't really need to, sound like a professor about it. That's what the professors are for, right? And they're a great resource and they're accessible.
Mhm. Another great point that it's not so heavily theory based. There's no deep text to read unless you'd like to, then that you have those resources available. But right, it is that practical application learning as you're doing. And that's kind of that sticky learning that we know now is the future of learning. You know, we don't have to do it the old way anymore. So thanks, Alyssa. That's great feedback. And Sat, what about you? How would you compare Quantic to other well-known institutions?
Um, Well, one, I haven't been to any others, so I can't say about actually attending them, but I have a lot of friends who've done the large institutions in the UK. So whether they're LSE, London Business School, Cranfield, Oxford Business School, I've got loads of friends who've done all those, and they've all done them for different reasons. But also, I think they were able to take a slightly different approach in terms of how much time they could set aside, the budget they had to assign to it. And I wasn't in that position at the beginning of COVID. So I'm pretty late in my career. I don't need a brand name, right? That's well recognized. And because I don't know if the rest of you have found this, but when I started doing Quantic, it wasn't as well known. I know it's a lot better known now, and I know there's a reach out program, but when I first started, it was a little less known. But that didn't worry me because it was more, as Alyssa said, it's about the practicality of the exam. So I took a little starter pack and I had a quick look at it before I signed up, and that was great. I got an opportunity to actually touch and feel it, and it was more practical. It was more of what I needed in my life at the time. I also didn't want to exclude myself from the business or doing other work as well. So it had to be available to work around my requirements timing wise. So I couldn't take a year out and go and do something on site at LSE or on site at Cranfield. That was never going to be an option. And everything else part time was 2 or 3 or 4 years, which again, I didn't have the time for that. I needed something that year that fit around my schedule. So I'm pretty demanding. I'm not sure if this is fair or not, but nothing else is going to map to that from what I saw. And the networking just hasn't worked. For other people, I talked to a lot of my friends who are at Cranfield, and they have a very close, tight network that they worked with while they were there, but they don't have the same expansive network that I have access to and have the fortune to meet at Quantic.
That's a great point. There's no geographical barriers when you're learning in this style. And for any audience members who haven't tried the courses on the platform, they're all free. There's foundational courses for all the degrees. Just try them. You'll see what it's all about. If that learning style even works for you, if you like this. But all of the quizzes, the lessons, exams, they're all delivered on this platform in the same style. So you know exactly what to expect. And Saad, I love that you also mentioned that, you know, you didn't necessarily need the name brand on your resume to get ahead. And certainly there are industries and job titles where that's appropriate or relevant, you know, depending on the company or your own ambitions, you know, that having a name brand. But this one is a different type of brand and it works for a lot of people. And you can see this extensive network and the type of people who have come out and who have started businesses and have been promoted. Yeah, it's a different kind of network, but it is also super valuable. Sat, you had mentioned before that you had some advice about the projects, and you know that's our next question that we'll be getting into. So if you want to you know elaborate a little bit on that, or if you got any other technical, structural, community advice that you'd like to impart on anyone who's thinking about starting the program.
Yeah. So first of all, I think it's really easy to get into. Yeah. So that's the first thing. So, don't be afraid about just jumping in. I think that's one thing that I found, which I always do have some nervousness and some other things that I've done in my life where they're not as accessible. I think Alyssa used this as a comment somewhere else about accessibility. I think it's really important for me that you jump in. The second one is something that I found as a sort of byproduct of this networking thing. I think if I were to go and do it again, I'd start a lot earlier. So reaching out in Slack, using that dashboard with a network button that just says to you, right, how many people have you got in your local area? If I'm visiting somewhere, go and click on the area that I'm visiting and see how many people are either current students or alumni in that area. It was funny, when we were at the Lisbon conference, I remember meeting a couple of people from Geneva who were not aware that there were other people from Geneva at the conference. And that was a little strange for me because it's a small place. I think there were about 20 people from Quantic in Geneva, but they just weren't aware of each other. I thought, well, that's the mistake I made at the beginning. I didn't reach out, and it wasn't until the Dubai conference, which was about a year in, that I really started seeing the networking effect and actually getting to know people more. And then obviously Nikki, who was there, started doing a lot of the London meetups. So I think if I'd been more proactive and I'd added more energy at the beginning, I would have got lot more out of it during the early stage of my career. Oh, sorry, of my business.
You know, in admissions, we always say to applicants that you will get out of this what you put into it. And that is a great testament to jump in and start earlier. You know, as if you're, you know, attending those optional case studies and webinars, you're going to meet people who maybe have different aspects or different opinions, and you're going to learn something from them. So, and I'm glad that, you know, all these years out, there weren't many in-person opportunities back when you were a student. And so now you're kind of making up for lost time.
Well, I missed the first two conferences, and everyone who went to those conferences say they were the best ones ever. Well, until Lisbon, anyway. So yeah, I missed Copenhagen. I missed Berlin, I think was the other one. Amazing places, you know. And yeah, so as soon as I went to Dubai, I realized that, you know, you've got to be here in person as well. I think it really makes a huge difference. And the events that you guys put together really do make it worthwhile as a long weekend or a sort of second half of the week.
Yeah, huge enhancement to just the learning and the project work. Yeah, Alyssa, you wrote a really nice review of your Lisbon experience. But I want to pass it over to Joy. Do you have any advice that you would give to someone who is thinking about or maybe about to embark on this program?
For me, I think hopefully you've heard from all of us kind of our whys for, considering Quantic. It's for me, it's something I would absolutely do again. And even I think the conversation today has invigorated me to go back and look at the courses again. Like I've been reading a lot of books, but what can I do to refresh some of my learning once again? And also maybe look for a conference to attend because I didn't get a chance to do that during my learning journey last year. But I definitely did enjoy the groups that I had opportunity to connect with and some virtual connections through LinkedIn where we had a virtual coffee and chat, whether it was career networking or things like that as well. So there's definitely a sense of community, although it's virtual. It's interesting that people still feel very connected within this group, and there's definitely a very friendly, connected atmosphere. But I do think the advisors, the leaders, even the professors drive that too, and they are entertaining. I mean, they're not dry. You think your accounting professors, I can't recall his name because I'm not in Slack right now. You think accounting's not going to be the most entertaining. That guy was a riot to listen to with his little zoomies, rockets, everything coming in. So never a dull moment in some of the courses. So I truly enjoyed the learning journey. So I would sign up and do it again.
Yeah, they want to make the learning fun as well for themselves.
Exactly.
Joy, something that you said, I think is important to kind of double down on is knowing your why. Knowing what you're trying to get out of this program. It is a commitment, but certainly having that conversation with yourself, with your network, your people, your company, is an important piece of advice for sure.
Yeah. And I think I'm so excited, but I have like recruits. So it comes up all the time where I've sent several people to Quantic as well, just from my experience, like, how did you do that? Or how did you manage that? And when they see it's doable from someone that's managing dual careers and kids and a crazy job and boards, I know Alyssa, you're on boards too. It's like, it can happen and it's very doable, gives confidence for others to jump in that may be on the fence as well.
Oh yeah, and Joy, I also wanted to mention, so I saw that you're part of the Women in High Tech group, and so there's lots of student-led organizations that are interest-based and industry-based. There's a women's club, there's an entrepreneurs club. They're like one of the most active clubs that we have here. So another opportunity to kind of engage and meet other people who maybe share common background or interests. That's great. And so Alyssa, I'd love to pass it over to you if you can give us some advice that you'd like to impart on our audience here.
Yeah, building on what Joy said, knowing your own priorities, I think is really important so that you can keep it in perspective, right? So life is busy, things happen, but you're really only in this program for a short period of time. And so, for me, it was really about, I was really focused on the accounting and finance pieces. So during those time periods, I was all in it. I was doing it all. And there were other sections where, I've been in HR for a long time. I didn't have to put as much mental or emotional energy into those sections, right? It was about refreshing the content or having conversations. So just, kind of be thoughtful about what your goals are. If you're going for honors or you really just want to get some practical application, like those are two different student journeys, right? And everyone has different needs. And going back to that keeping perspective, like Sat was saying, I think at one point I was just busy and I got caught up in it, and I wasn't taking advantage of the one-on-ones and the Slack channel and that opportunity to connect with people. I had gone out and tried to add people to my LinkedIn, but I wasn't actually talking to them. So, keep in mind, take that deep breath. When it's over, it'll be over, and it'll be fast in retrospect. So soak up all those times while you can, experiment, try some new things. It's a safe place for that, right? It's a safe place to kind of take a different role on a project team than maybe you naturally would. So instead of being the HR person, play something else, right? And take that opportunity to learn. And I guess I would end on, Quantic gives you this great foundation. It's up to you to build your mansion on it, right? And what you want that to look like. They're going to offer conferences, they're going to offer group projects and things like that, but you still choose your own adventure, and what you want that to look like. So, build it the way you want it and have fun along the way.
Have fun, obviously. Joy, do you want to add anything to that?
I do. Something that I think Alyssa shared is really important, and I think even comments that made earlier is in undergrad, and some of us have perfectionist tendencies. I'm like a recovering perfectionist. I'm no longer one. But for me, I was like, this isn't about honors. And to Sat's point, I'm at a point in my career, like I don't need an MBA because I'm trying to go to McKinsey or Deloitte, a consulting firm. So I don't need this from, Duke or Northwestern. I need an MBA for me to get better in finance and accounting. And so for me, to Alyssa's point, it's a learning journey for me to grow as a human. So I am not putting the unnecessary pressure on myself for honors. So if I get a B on this test, it will not be the end of my world, and I am not going to die over this. And so I think that was very freeing. This depending on what you're trying to achieve on the journey. But I think that was an excellent point, Alyssa, know what your values are, know what you're trying to get out of it. So it made it a lot less stressful than undergrad, that's for sure. And my parents weren't asking me about my grades either. So they were just happy I was doing it.
You heard it from a recovering perfectionist, folks. And what Alyssa said also, you're only here for a short period of time. The MBA and Executive MBA are 15 months. The MSSE, MSBA, they're only 13 months. So you really do need to get out of it what you can during that period of time. So I think these are all amazing points, really great pieces of advice. And sometimes we like to wrap up the session with just one adjective that you would use to describe either your experience or the Quantic community. So Sat, what word would you use?
An adjective.
Mm-hmm.
Exciting.
Love it. I feel that. How about you, Joy?
I would probably say grateful.
Lovely. Alyssa, what about you?
Customizable.
Choose your own adventure. There we go. Wonderful. Well, I'm going to wrap up with a couple reminders before we send everyone on their ways. First of all, thank you to Brandy and Jermaine for being so active in the chat box. I saw tons of questions coming in, especially about projects and coursework. And so those were addressed. And if any other questions are coming up, you have our contact details and we can answer them. But download the app and try some of the foundational courses so you understand what to expect, the learning style. It's very unique. It uses active learning. And follow us on LinkedIn. We host LinkedIn Lives. Some are available to people outside of the student and alumni community, but we often post updates here, conference updates, or if we've added new courses, especially for alumni that they can take advantage of. So the LinkedIn page is pretty active. And so there is an application deadline coming up on Thursday, July 18th. And the decisions for this cohort go out on August 13th for the classes that begin on October 20th. So if you're thinking about applying, just do it. We will walk you through the process. And good luck to those of you who are at different stages of the application process, or those who maybe are going to start their program in a couple weeks. We're so grateful that you all came to attend today. And of course, a huge thank you to Joy, Alyssa, and Satpal. This was a really fun session. You guys have a lot of really different backgrounds, but a lot of the same core characteristics. So we really appreciate your time today and hope you stay involved with the community. I'm sure we'll see you back on a panel in the future.
What
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are in this world.
Thanks so much.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.